This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we're dealing with a Frigidaire dryer that's making a really bad squeaking sound because the rear bearing is worn out. So this is how to change the rear bearing. And I'm just moving the drum manually and I can hear it screeching, so we gotta get that fixed. We're gonna unplug it or turn off the power first, and then using a paint scraper we're gonna come in about 3 inches from each corner. We're going to hit these clips to loosen the top cover. And the top cover hinges. You can just hinge it all the way back. Be careful it doesn't fall on you while you're working. I'm going to use some diagonal pliers to cut through a zip tie that holds on one of the wires here that connects to the front panel. Then I'll disconnect these modular connectors for the wires going to the front panel. We have to remove the front panel first to be able to get to the rear bearing. Then I'll take out 2 Phillips head screws that are located on the left and right side on the inside that are holding on the front panel. Sometimes these dryers are stacked, so it's good to stand on a stool or a ladder to get you up high enough to get to these 2 screws. Then you pull back and the clips will let go, and then there's a couple of clips at the bottom. You just hinge back to 45 degrees and lift off the front panel. Then we're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove this little piece. This is just designed to keep the tumbler in place. Get that out of the way. And then we disconnected the belt by reaching back and taking it off of the spring tensioner, and now we're going to lift up on the whole drum to get it off of the rear bearing. You have to lift it up about 2 or 3 inches. Sometimes it's not easy to get it off there. I usually get underneath with both hands and push up to make it let go. Then we're just going to take the whole tumbler, whole drum out and set it down. And the rear bearing kit comes with the metal bearing itself and also a cup. I'm putting a little piece of electrical tape, or any kind of tape would work, behind where the rear bearing cup goes, and that's just to hold a little piece of metal in place so that I can put in the new part. So just putting a little tape back there to hold in a small piece of metal. It's about 2 inches. It goes right behind that little cup here that we just removed. And we've got the new cup, and we're adding in the lubricant that comes with the kit. There'll be a little tube of it, and you want to just basically use all the lubricant that's in the tube, and that goes in this little socket that the rear bearing ball goes into, and that stuff wears out over time, so it's good to put in some brand new lubricant. I got all the pieces of the cup together, a little metal bracket, and then 2 screws that hold it together, and then I'm going to put a little BB that comes with it on the back of this cup. It's going to be held in position by a little piece of metal on the back. That's the one that we taped into position. And then I'm going to tighten up these 2 screws, and they're feeding into that little piece of metal that's being held in by the tape. If that piece of metal comes off, it's no big deal. You just need to have somebody back there holding that piece of metal while you put in these screws. So tape's a lot easier if you're just working by yourself. And we'll get these screws in there tight. And then while I have it open, I'm using the paintbrush. You could use a vacuum cleaner to get rid of all the dust, especially around the motor. And I'm using a little lubricant on the idler pulley because they can often be squeaky. I'm just using the paintbrush to get rid of all this dust that builds up in this area. So you can use a little brush, or you can use compressed air, or a vacuum works great. So now we're going to attach the new rear bearing to the drum, to the tumbler, And to do that, we have to thread in some new Phillips screws that came with the rear bearing. So we put the screws in position, and then using a powerful screwdriver, we drive in 3 of them. I usually just use 1 screw. I take it out, drive it in 3 times, and that cuts threads into the rear bearing. If you forget to do that, it makes it pretty hard to put on this bearing. So once we have those threads cut, we can then use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove the old bearing. We're just going to zip out these 3 screws. And then I grab my new bearing and the new screws that come in the kit. I'm going to put 1 screw in at the 12 o'clock position. There's 3 screws, so I'll put 1 in the very top. And then I'll put my bearing in position, and then using my screwdriver, I'll zip in that first screw. You can have someone help you. I have long arms, so I'm able to reach over and kind of push in on the bearing. But you can have someone help you, or you could tape it in position while you're putting in these screws. Make sure you get these in really tight. I've installed these before and didn't get them tight enough, and then they loosen up, and then the machine will make some new noises that aren't very good. So now we're putting the tumbler back in. We're going to get it inside the case. We're going to lift it up on top of that cup, and then it'll drop into that cup. That ball will drop into that socket. And then got the belt in position. Here's the idler pulley. I'm going to get the belt over that and then stretch it over the motor pulley. Now that I have it in position, I'm going to turn the tumbler to make sure that the belt won't come off. I'm going to do 1 or 2 full revolutions to make sure that belt won't loosen. It may not spin perfectly right now because it's not connected to the front bearing, but you just want to spin it, make sure the belt's not going to come off. Okay, now we'll get the little plastic piece here that holds the tumbler in position. Put the Phillips head screw back in. All done. Okay, we're going to put the front panel back on, and we're going to lift up on the tumbler so it can sit on the front bearing. We're going to push these clips in. Make sure you've lifted up on that tumbler. There we go, so it can fit on the bearing. And then push in. It'll just clip into position. It'll stay there by itself. But you do want to put in the Phillips head screws to hold it. So be careful here that you don't drop it. Just take your time. Get it in by finger tight first, and then use your screwdriver. We get that side, and then we're going to connect the wire modular connectors. And then we need to put a new zip tie to hold these wires in position. And once it's all connected, we can close the top and push down till it clicks. And we can plug it back in and then give it a test. So it's running again smooth, no more terrible squeaks, and you'll have a dryer that works great again. So thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance.